Sing it and I'll marry you.
Sing this at the party, and I'll marry you. That sentence hit the big music hall of Hawthorne Heights Academy like a bomb. It wasn't a suggestion. It was the punchline. Who is the speaker? The third Jet Carrington. He is the heir to one of the biggest media empires in the country, with golden hair, azure eyes, and no one can touch them. The kind of boy whose name is sewn into structures and uttered in secret at fundraisers. And what about the female he was talking to? Zaria Lane, 17, black, not there. The daughter of a waitress who made these same students scrambled eggs every morning. Zaria stood still in the back row of advanced music theory, wearing a hand-me-down uniform and shoes that were so clean they looked brand new. The whole room spun. Everyone was looking at her. Put your phones up, recording, waiting for the shame to hit. Jet wasn't finished. He threw the sheet music away like it was trash with a sneer. "It's Mozart," he remarked, his voice full of pride. "Queen of the night. Hit the high notes, my dear. We will send out the invitations to the wedding." The room filled with laughter, the kind of laugh that tells you to know your place. But Zaria didn't find it funny. She also didn't weep. She just looked at the page. Then she looked up, and for the first time, the room was quiet. Even the loudest people stopped talking when they saw her gaze. This isn't simply a play for high school. This is a conflict that is going on in quiet. A war of race, class, and voice. And at that time, a girl who had nothing, a spotlight, a last name on a building, a coach, or a scholarship, was given a gun. The thing that was supposed to make her look bad might be the key to everything for her. This isn't just a comeback. This is a narrative about black people. A tale of determination, elegance, and fury transformed into music. A story on how dignity speaks softly while power yells. And this time, the echo might really shake things up. Welcome to Hidden Worth, where we provide a voice to people the world seeks to silence. Stay with us if you want to feel something real. Let's go back to the start now. Before the test, before the aria, before the roar. Let's get to know Zaria Lane. Zaria Lane shouldn't have been there. That's what most folks at Hawthorne Heights thought, at least. The academy was on a high wooded hill in upstate Massachusetts, where old money murmured through marble columns and scholarship students were told to be quiet. Hawthorne was like a university but cost as much as a penthouse. There, the children of senators, CEOs, and Silicon Valley heirs learned to play the piano before they could spell it. None of that has anything to do with Zaria. She and her mother, Angela, lived in a one-bedroom apartment that was connected to the back of the school's staff quarters. There is no fancy staircase, no floor that becomes hot. They just had a leaky radiator and the continual noise of the laundry room below. Every morning, her mother worked at the campus dining hall and wore the same uniform. Every night, she wore the same exhausted smile. What about Zaria? She woke up every day at 4:45 a.m., helped her mom prep breakfast trays, then switched into her school uniform before the first bell. She had learned how to remain invisible. Take a seat toward the back. When someone calls, answer. Be nice and smile. Don't ever tell people that your mom makes their lunch. But Zaria Lane did have a voice, a real one. She just hadn't used it yet. She had thick locks that she wrapped back into a tidy bun. Her hazel eyes were wide and saw everything. Her body was both graceful and strong. She wasn't really loud. She didn't have to be. People would sometimes stare at her without knowing they were doing it. And still, they never saw her. In every class, Zaria was the girl in the back, the girl whose name professors would stop and think about before uttering it, the girl who ate lunch without talking. She took notes like she was writing a novel and always turned in papers that were typed and double-checked, since she knew that one mistake might make someone like her seem ungrateful. She never informed anyone that she sang, not even her best teachers. Zaria would sneak into the old theater wing at night, when the corridors were dark and the music rooms were locked. She would wait until the janitor was done mopping, then she would go up on stage without shoes and sing gently into the frigid air. It was the one place she felt full. The sound coming back was proof that she was real. But just being alive in a place like Hawthorne Heights wasn't enough. Not when the narrative came from the kitchen. Not when your skin made them think of all the things they wished to forget. Zaria had figured out how to vanish. She still didn't know how to be heard, but that was going to change. It was just like any other Tuesday in advanced music theory. The third-floor classroom at Hawthorne Heights was more like a symphony hall than a room. Panels made of mahogany, seating in tiers. A baby grand piano that has been polished till it appeared like still water. There were pictures of dead composers on the walls. They were all white and male: Bach, Beethoven, Bernstein. Mrs. Aldridge stood at the front of the class with her back straight and her face blank. Her voice was so piercing that it could cut marble. It felt like she was getting her students ready for battle, not music. She said, "Today we talk about vocal range, specifically the limits of the soprano." She clicked a remote, and a computerized board showed a piece of music. She said, "Der Helle Rache," the Queen of the Night aria. A wave of groans went through the room. Everyone was familiar with the piece. It was well known, very hard to do, and quite angry. Some of the students seemed interested. Some people rolled their eyes. One hand went up. Jet Carrington III. He put his arm across the back of his chair like he owned it. He had on a navy blazer that was probably worth more than Zaria and her mom made in a month. As he talked, the gold cufflinks sparkled. "Mrs.," he said. His voice smooth as butter and twice as smug. "Nobody really sings that." "That's right. Not if they want to break glass or murder pigeons." Laughter, the sort that comes in waves. Not because the joke was humorous, but because Jet uttered it. Mrs. Aldridge smiled tightly. "It's very ambitious, but it has been mastered." Then a voice sounded from the rear, gentle, steady. "It's not about the sound, it's about the rage." People looked. 20 people looked at Zaria Lane. She didn't mean to say anything. It had gotten out, a reflex. She kept her eyes on the music, but her heart was racing. "What did you say?" Jet yelled. Zaria raised her head. The voice was calm, but she was gripping the edge of the desk with her fingers. "It's not screeching. The aria is a weapon. It's not noise, it's rage." Jet got up. He didn't yell. He didn't have to. As he moved down the aisle, he cautiously pulled a book off of Mrs. Aldridge's shelf. He ripped a page out of it. The sound bounced off the walls. He strolled over to Zaria's desk and dropped it like a challenge. He said, "Let me tell you something. Sing this at the Founders Gala, and I will marry you." The room went crazy. Laughter. "Hold your phones up." A chorus of jeers. Mrs. Aldridge didn't say anything. Zaria looked at the page. It shone with notes that couldn't be real. Her hands shook, but she didn't blink. They felt they were making fun of her. They didn't know they had just given her a microphone. Zaria Lane had been awake for 3 hours by the time the top students at Hawthorne Heights were just getting out of bed. She didn't start her days with warm baths and protein shakes. The alarm on her broken phone went off at 4:45 a.m., and an old radiator hissed as it tried to keep the New England cold at bay. She'd discreetly get out of bed and put on her cafeteria uniform, which consisted of navy blue pants, a stiff white button-up shirt, and a name tag that had long since faded. She was downstairs in the dining hall by 5:15 a.m., putting out trays of dry cereal and scrambled eggs. A lot of students didn't even look at the individuals behind the desk. Zaria was used to not being seen. She really did count on it. That way, it was safer. After her breakfast job ended at 7 a.m., she would go upstairs, put on her school uniform, and transition from a waitress to a student. The same corridor with the same people, but a whole new universe. The only thing that stayed the same was the quiet that came after her. Zaria was aware of the rules. Don't talk too loudly. Don't talk too much. Improve, but not so much that it makes people feel bad. She studied between classes while other people talked. Zaria was in the library with her earbuds in and Mozart playing on repeat, while her classmates talked about their expensive spring break plans to Paris, the Turks and Caicos, and Aspen. She didn't go home at night, not really. She put on her food service costume again after her last class and worked the supper shift. She cleaned up after the same youngsters she had been sitting next to all day. They chatted about her like she wasn't there while they wiped ketchup off the tabletop. Most lights were off and most conversations were gone by 8 p.m. That's when Zaria turned back into herself. She'd slip into the old performing arts wing, which was the portion of the school that no one actually utilized anymore. The doors made a noise. The lights on stage didn't function, but the sound was great. She would get on stage, with no microphone or crowd, and just she and the quiet would sing. She performed songs that her mom used to play on the old record player at home: Mahalia, Ella, Leontine Price, and more recently, Mozart. She already knew that aria, the one Jet tossed at her like a dare. Not quite, but not too much to feel it. I knew it wasn't just a song. It was a scream, a warning, a vow. And Zaria Lane was figuring out how to make it her own. It happened on a Friday afternoon, just before the sign-up sheets for the Founders Gala went up. Zaria had just finished her last class and was helping out in the dining hall by putting silverware back in place and cleaning tables. It was quiet, like one of those hours when the day students were off to lacrosse practice or piano lessons, and the campus felt half asleep. Angela Lane, Zaria's mom, was on her knees by the drink station, cleaning up a sticky mess that someone had made. She had a sore back. She had been working since dawn, and the cold water in the bucket made her hands shake, even though they were covered in thin gloves. Brooke Langston came in at that time. Brooke was blonde, well-groomed, and sure of herself. She had grown up with a lot of money, so she never had to say thank you. Her dad was on the Hawthorne board. Her mom was in charge of the school's yearly gala to raise money, and Brooke was aware of it. She stood at the counter, clicking her nails and looking at Angela like she was a piece of furniture that didn't belong there. "You missed a spot," she stated bluntly, pointing to the edge of the counter. Angela looked up and tried to smile. "Okay, honey, I'll get right on it." Brooke laughed. "Don't call me that." She leaned in a little and said in a low, piercing voice, "You are not family. You're just staff." Zaria had been filling the napkin holders a few feet distant. Her back got stiff. Brooke wasn't done yet. "It's crazy," she remarked louder now, looking at her pals who had just come in. "We're supposed to have a black tie gala next week, but they still have maids cleaning the floors in the middle of the day." Laughing, mean, not serious. Zaria let go of the napkins. The sound made Brooke look over, and she narrowed her brows in smug recognition. "Oh," she said, "I didn't see you there. But I guess I should have known. The little helper is always close by." Angela got up slowly, and her face was pallid. She opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. She put her hand on her chest. Zaria ran to her. "Mom." Angela responded, "I'm fine," but her voice was weak, not loud enough. She fell down in a matter of seconds. The cafeteria turned into a mess. A teacher asked for the nurse. A person called 911. Zaria hugged her mother on the chilly tile floor, and her hands were shaking. The mop water had made her uniform wet. Her heart was beating fast, not deep. Zaria stayed still with the sheet of Mozart still folded in her jacket pocket when the EMTs arrived and put Angela on the stretcher. Zaria figured something out that night, while she was alone in the hospital waiting room. There was more to this than just a dare. It wasn't about the gala, Jet, or Mozart. This had to do with respect. This was about being noticed. And someone would have to get them to look. She didn't meet Mr. Duval in a classroom the first time. It was in the dark. Zaria went back to school 2 days after her mother fell down, as if nothing had occurred. Angela's physicians told her to relax. Drugs, maybe even an operation. But none of that came with a salary. So Zaria did her job. She made breakfast. She wrote down what she learned in class. She kept her head down and her mouth shut. But the music brought her back at night. She snuck back into the old theater wing just before midnight. She had the Mozart sheet that Jet had flung at her, carefully folded up in her notebook so it wouldn't break if she touched it. The room was dark, but there was a little bit of moonlight streaming through the stained glass. Zaria was the only one on stage. There was no audience, no microphone, only the sound of her breath. She sang. Not the complete song. The beginning is delicate, broken, and slow. She kept on even when her voice broke. She let the sound come apart, one note at a time, like plucking a thread out of a wound. She heard it after she was done. A sluggish clap. She stopped. A person came out from the back row, very tall, used, wearing a tweed jacket and a scarf, even though it wasn't cold. Mr. Duval. She had seen him previously, maybe 2 times. He was the school's music appreciation teacher that no one remembered. He taught freshman electives in a basement classroom that was dusty and not many people went to. People said he had sang on great venues a long time ago, before things went awry, before he faded into the background. He said, "Not bad. It's not good yet, but not too horrible." Zaria's heart raced. She said, "I didn't know anyone was here." He answered, "That's the thing about music. It finds people, even if you don't want it to." He took his time getting to the edge of the stage. "Are you trying to sing Queen of the Night?" he inquired, pointing at the crumpled paper in her hand. She nodded her head. He let out a long breath that sounded like a sigh and a laugh. He remarked, "That's not a song. That's a storm. You don't sing it. You live through it." Zaria swallowed. "I want to know." Mr. Duval turned his head. "Why?" She thought for a second, then answered, calmly and quietly. "Someone told me I couldn't." That made him happy. Just barely. He said, "Good. Come back tomorrow. 5 in the morning. Sharp. We'll see if you have more than just fire. We'll see if you have steel." Zaria nodded her head. Something changed as she stepped off that empty stage. She was no longer merely a girl who cleaned floors. She was a girl who was getting ready to fight. 5 o'clock in the morning. Came in cooler than I thought. Zaria stood outside the ancient theater wing, and her breath made the early morning air look like white fog. She wore her thickest hoodie under her blazer and a pair of old sneakers that squeaked on the linoleum floor. The lights were already on inside. Mr. Duval was sitting at the old upright piano with a scarf still wrapped firmly around his neck. Next to him was a hot mug of black coffee. "Close the door," he muttered without looking up. "You're letting the heat out. And God knows this place doesn't have much left." Zaria did what she was told. He stated, "Vocal cords are muscles, and yours haven't been trained. But today we stretch." He didn't inquire if she was warm. He didn't ask how she was doing. He only played one note. He told her to breathe. From your gut, not your chest. Think of it as putting a lot of air in a balloon in your stomach. She made an effort. He said, "Nope. That's air in your throat. That's fear. Do it again." And she did. Done. And again. And over. Scales. Arpeggios. She could barely say Italian vowels. German consonants that got trapped in her mouth. And what about when her voice broke? He told her to stop. Not to pamper, but to change. He said, "You're not here to sound pretty. You came here to sound honest." He tapped her back with a rolled-up music sheet as her posture slumped. "Your spine is your flag when you sing. You are on a battlefield. Don't slouch." Her throat hurt on the 3rd day. Her voice sounded like gravel. She drank tea between classes, and honey and lemon became her new breakfast. On the 5th day, she learned how to sing through her anguish. Mr. Duval never said nice things. He did, though. And every now and again, after a sentence, he would comment, "That wasn't too bad." And in Duval language, that was everything. They didn't only play Mozart. He made her sing spirituals, protest songs, and torch songs. Songs sung in chains, on cotton fields, and in jazz clubs with a lot of smoke. Songs about women who had to fight for the right to be heard. "Do you think this aria is about notes?" he asked one morning. "This is about anger, girl. The kind of anger that black women have had for hundreds of years, clothed in silk and grace. You don't just strike the high F. You make it bleed." Zaria nodded. She didn't cry. Not until she came back home. And then she did. In a quiet way. In the dark. Because she finally got what it meant to make art out of pain. She was being made. Not polished. Not in a box. Made up. The fight started because of a half-eaten cup of soup. It was late, almost 9 p.m. Zaria had just gotten home from her evening cleaning job. Her blazer was splattered with oil from the cafeteria, and her fingers hurt from scrubbing tile grout. She put her backpack on the kitchen chair and saw her mom at the table, trying to fold up medical bills into tidy little stacks. It was as if she thought that sorting them would make the numbers smaller. Angela looked up, her eyes heavy. "You didn't reply to my texts." Zaria said, "I was with Mr. Duval," and then she went straight to the sink to wash her hands. Again. Zaria didn't say anything. Angela put the paper down in her palms. Baby, you need to sleep. These late evenings and early mornings aren't good for you. You are getting sick. Zaria remarked, I'm not getting sick, as she dried her hands with a dish towel. I'm getting ready. For what? Some performance that won't alter anything? Zaria turned around. That hurt. Angela stood up and rubbed her temples. Zaria, I'm proud of how talented you are. Yes, I am. But we have to be honest. Those people at that school don't want you on that stage. Zaria snapped. They don't have to want me. I'm going anyway. Her mom blinked because she wasn't ready for how sharp her voice was. Zaria's tone became a little softer. I'm not doing this to get praise, or to make a point. The only way I can change something is by doing this. Angela's shoulders fell. You think I don't get that? You think I don't realize how hard it is to get noticed in this world? Zaria looked down, and her throat tightened. I clean up after them, Angela said, her voice trembling. I grin as they gossip behind my back. And now they make fun of you. They make fun of you. That boy Jet, what he said. I know, Zaria responded in a low voice. Angela murmured, I just don't want you to stand on that stage and give them everything, only for them to tear it apart. A long hush followed. Then Zaria moved forward and softly put her hand over her mother's. They did already, she said. Every day, in the hallways, in the lunchroom, when they treated you like a servant instead of the mother who reared me. Mom, I won't be torn apart on that platform. I finally get to talk on that stage. Angela's eyes filled with tears. Zaria said, and if I fall, I'll fall on my own voice, not their quiet. She hugged her mother tightly and pulled her close. I just want you to be safe. Zaria muttered, I want to be seen. That was the last choice. There were 5 days till the gala, and Zaria Lane would be there too, with nothing to lose and everything to prove. The audition room wasn't fancy. There was a buzz from the fluorescent lights above. The vintage Yamaha upright piano needed a little tuning. Mrs. Aldridge was rigid as ever. Mr. Duval was reclining back with his arms crossed, and Mr. Feldman, a guest judge from the board and a donor who was known for appreciating polished acts, sat at one of the 3 folding tables. Each finalist had 5 minutes, 1 tune, no second chances. Zaria sat in the hallway outside, holding the music on her lap, even though she wouldn't need it. She knew every tune by heart, not only how it sounds, but how heavy it is. The wrath, the sadness, the fire. After Brooke Langston's audition, the people in the room clapped. She walked out, smiling in a nice outfit, and her classmates were whispering about how flawless her approach was. When the assistant called her name, Zaria stood up. Everyone said, good luck. Even though her hands were freezing, she came into the room with her head held high. Name? Mrs. Aldridge asked, without looking up very much. Zaria Lane. And what will you be singing? Zaria replied, Je veux vivre from Gounod's Romeo et Juliet. The aria wasn't by Mozart. Not yet. Mr. Duval told her to store it for later, for the time that would be most important. Mrs. Aldridge lifted an eyebrow. An interesting choice. A little too much. Zaria didn't say anything. She looked at the person playing the piano, nodded, and waited for the song to start. After that, she sung. The room transformed. She didn't merely hit the right notes. She was within of them. The words danced with want and lightness, yet there was hardness underneath. Her vowels were clear, and she could control her breath well. And at the climax, when Juliet's happiness turns into resistance, Zaria's voice didn't merely get louder. It went up. Mr. Feldman leaned forward in his chair. Mrs. Aldridge put her pen down. The accompanist, whose fingers had been on autopilot all afternoon, slowed down and softened his playing, as if he didn't want the moment to end. When the last note drifted away, the room was quiet. Not an uneasy silence, not courteous silence. The kind of quiet that comes after something real. Zaria let out a breath and nodded slightly. She only said, "Thank you." She turned around and left, but Mr. Feldman spoke before she got to the door. "Miss Lane?" She came to a stop. That was unexpected. Mrs. Aldridge cleared her throat. "Yes. Okay. We'll let the finalists know next week." Mr. Duval didn't say anything. But when Zaria stepped back into the corridor, he let himself smile a little. It had started. Brooke Langston had never lost anything. Not a race, not a choice, not even a poll on who is most popular during Spirit Week. When the list of contenders for the Founders Gala came out and she saw Zaria Lane's name in clear black ink right below hers, her stomach turned. She grinned at the cameras. She gave her friends a hug. But when she came back to her dorm room, she banged the door so hard that the lights flickered. Zaria Lane, the girl who works at the cafeteria. It was a joke. It was even worse. It was a threat. Brooke has been getting ready for her showcase her whole life. Lessons once a week with private teachers from New York. Intensive courses in Milan in the summer. A resume made for Juilliard and other schools. Now what? A girl with a lovely face and a mop was getting all the attention. She wasn't going to let that happen. So she started to dig. She learned that Zaria's mom worked at the school as a service worker. Angela Lane is classified as custodial staff on the payroll. She obtained a picture of Zaria at a student worker event and placed it in a private group chat with the message, "Waitress by day, soprano by night, queen of doing more than one thing at once." The responses came quickly. Laughing, emojis, one person even remarked, "Can she sing while cleaning the stage?" But that wasn't enough. Brooke needed to be in charge. She went to Mrs. Aldridge's office, pretending to want to discuss program details. She told her how pretty her earrings were, said something nice about her nice blouse. Then they quietly brought up a worry. "I just hope the competition stays at a certain level." "Standard," Brooke murmured in a voice that was sweet as honey. "Because of the school's reputation, you know. There is a difference between having natural skill and being ready." Mrs. Aldridge didn't say anything, but Brooke noticed it the way the eyes got a little smaller. The seed had been put in the ground. Brooke still realized that music was the battleground, and she was armed. Her last choice of performance? A really hard aria by Bellini. Gorgeous, technical, flashy. It didn't tell a story. It showed off skill. And that was the point. Let Zaria sing her sad lullabies. Brooke would shine in the room with accuracy, like a robot. But machines don't bleed, they don't break. They also don't get folks to relocate. Brooke never understood that Zaria was becoming a weapon while she was sharpening hers. Zaria got stronger the more Brooke pushed her. Because this was no longer just about music. It was about sound. And who really needed to be heard. The night of the Founders Gala came like a hurricane in sequins. The auditorium has never looked so nice before. The warm stage lights made the velvet curtains dance, and the crystal chandeliers gleamed from the ceiling. Donors, board members, faculty, and families all dressed in black tie splendor filled every seat in the house, while ushers handed people programs written on rich, gold-trimmed paper. A live string quartet performed softly in the background. There was a lot of tension backstage, like static. Zaria was by alone in the back corner. Her hair was pinned back, and she was wearing a midnight blue dress that she had borrowed from a neighbor who used to sing in the church choir. It fit perfectly simple, classy, and robust. The neckline was square, and the sleeves were long. She looked like she belonged in another period. Brooke, on the other hand, moved through the dressing room like a swan, wearing a bespoke silk gown that sparkled silver under every light. Her vocal teacher, who had flown in for the event, whispered the last notes into her ear. She nodded quietly, knowing that the trophy was already hers. Then the announcement came. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen." Mrs. Aldridge's voice rang out from the stage. "Two finalists will perform tonight. The judges will pick the winner. The winner will get the entire patron scholarship and a personal recommendation to Juilliard's selection committee." The audience clapped. Zaria took a deep breath and closed her eyes. She had been told by Mr. Duval not to worry about being flawless. Only the truth. The story is all. An assistant came up to her softly from behind the scenes. He said, "Change of order. You go second." Zaria made a face. That wasn't what we had in mind. Brooke was expected to go second and end strong, take charge of the last memory. Zaria's eyes moved to the side. Brooke was cheerful and calm as she flipped through her score. It was a trap. Of course it was. Brooke wanted Zarya to go last, after everyone else had already stood up for her. When the judges were tired, after the applause reached its peak, Zarya gulped down hard. Then they nodded. "Let her start the show," she said. Brooke got on stage 10 minutes later. Her aria was perfect. Every note hit, every phrase shaped. The gathering, made up of family and friends who had given money, stood up and clapped in unison. Mrs. Aldridge brushed away a tear, but no one could say if it was from pride or politics. And suddenly, nothing. Zarya Lane walked to the front of the stage. No piano, no music sheets. Just her and the folded-up sheet of Mozart's Queen of the Night aria. She didn't say anything. She didn't grin. She only sang. And with the first breath and the first high B-flat, the audience forgot about the last performance. But the voice wasn't the only thing that changed. It happened in the middle of the piece, when the flames grew and Zarya paused. There was no sound. Then she glanced out at the crowd and spoke in a firm voice. She said, "Someone gave me this piece as a joke, by someone who thought I wouldn't do it." She opened the paper, and so I did. Then she finished it without any music, raw, forceful, and uncompromising. The aria concluded with a scream, but not of suffering. It was a scream of release. And for the first time that night, no one clapped. They just stood there. Quiet, shaken. Mr. Duval stood up from the rear. Then the applause started. Longer than Brooke's, more noise than expected. Zarya Lane, the daughter of a waitress, just opened the room. And what about the scholarship? That would happen after the judges stopped crying. The next morning, the halls of the school were buzzing like a hive that had been shook. Everyone was talking about Zarya Lane. Not Brooke, not the aria from Bellini, not even the money for school. Zarya, the girl who was brave. Someone in the staff lounge had printed out her picture from the gala and taped it to the bulletin board next to a quotation in marker that said, "She didn't just sing. She stood." By midday, the school's website received the official news. Zarya Lane had won the Founders Gala, the scholarship for patrons. And with it, a full ride to Juilliard, including tuition, housing, a living stipend, and everything else. That wasn't the largest change, though. The board was the true shock. They made a second statement the day following the gala. They were starting a complete investigation of faculty behavior, notably in the performing arts department, since they were deeply concerned about class bias and selective gatekeeping. There had been emails sent that were not signed, screenshots, recordings. Brooke laughed in one voice message and called Zarya the janitor's girl who'll crack by the first verse. That afternoon, Mrs. Aldridge quit. Brooke Langston was not allowed to perform in public at the school for the rest of the year. And what about Jet, the boy who had made fun of Zarya with the sheet music? They told him to go. He called his dad, tried to put pressure on the board, but this time, no one moved. The community had seen too much noise. Zarya never asked for any of it. All she wanted to do was sing. But the sound of truth doesn't only echo when it's let out, it makes walls quake. Zarya and her parents left the dry cleaner 2 weeks later. The acceptance letter was in the red folder she was holding. The first payment of the living stipend was in the envelope in Angela's purse. Enough to cover their past due rent. A reporter from the area stopped them on the street. "Zarya, what would you tell other females who feel like they don't matter?" Zarya smiled faintly, not the polite, quiet smile they were used to seeing, but the whole thing, the one that stated she deserved every second of this moment. She answered, "I'd tell them the same thing Mr. Duval told me. Your voice is yours. They don't get to choose how loud it can be." The camera made a noise. Then she looked at her mom, who was suddenly walking taller, and Mr. Duval, who was waiting in his old pickup across the street with the radio on low. And for the first time, Zarya Lane wasn't trying to get attention. She just was. Your voice might not be meant to break chandeliers or get standing ovations. It could be a way to let someone know they're not alone. Zarya Lane's tale is about more than simply a song or a scholarship. It's about not living up to what people expect of you because of where you're from, how you appear, or how quietly the world believes you should live. It wasn't merely a contest that she won. She showed that you don't have to be rich to walk into a room and own it. that your past doesn't set your limit, and that sometimes the most potent way to protest is not keeping quiet. So, no matter where you are or what you have with you, keep this in mind. Your voice is important. The moment you decide to really use it is the moment everything can change. If this tale made you feel something, helped you breathe a little deeper, or reminded you of how valuable you are, please take a moment to support Hidden Worth. Leave a comment, press the like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe. We think that every story should be told, so we do. Especially the ones they sought to keep quiet.